It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview Dave Albaranes, who is the Alabama Assistant Strength and Coordinating Coach. How are you doing today?
Hey, Brandon. Doing well. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to become a strength and coordinating coach in college?
Yeah, so I'm from New York originally, and so I did my undergraduate degree at the college at Brockport, way upstate New York, middle of nowhere, and I studied exercise science and kinesiology. And from there, after I graduated, went on to do personal training, and I realized that the education that I got, which was in the classroom of exercise science, was very different from working with people and actually applying that knowledge. So after a year of personal training, I realized that I wanted to get more education, but I wanted it to be within the realm of practicality. Exercise science can become very clinical, and was my undergraduate degree. So I went to Springfield College, which is over in Massachusetts, for my master's in strength and conditioning. And so that was focused on training athletes. And so I had a graduate assistant position there as the gymnastics coach. And so that was also my team that I had in the weight room. And that was really my first go in strength and conditioning, doing the internships at Springfield College. So from there, I realized that was what I wanted to do. I like the hands-on aspect of strength and conditioning. I like the ability to work with people and be a coach rather than just a personal trainer or someone who is more in the exercise clinical setting. So Springfield College, the experience there really kind of set the path for me to go into collegiate strength and conditioning.
That's so amazing. Can you talk about your time at University of Illinois?
Yeah, so that was the job I had right after Springfield College, because I did gymnastics growing up, and I was the graduate assistant sport coach for the men's team there, and that was also the team that I trained in the weight room. It was actually very funny. Illinois was looking for a strength coach with gymnastics experience, so they reached out to Springfield. They said, "Hey, do you know anybody that knows gymnastics?" And they said, "Yeah, we got this guy who is a strength coach and a sport coach for them, so you should take him." So it was great. That was my first part-time position as a strength and conditioning coach. And so at Illinois, I had women's gymnastics and men's gymnastics, and also cheer. I assisted with softball, swimming, diving, and a couple other sports. That was really my first, jumping into the deep end strength and conditioning experience. So what ended up happening at Illinois was the coach who was above me, Chelsea Barr, she ended up getting a position at Ohio State University. So all those teams I mentioned that I was assisting with, I ended up taking over. So it was crazy. I had 6 teams that I was running with the help of another coach, Katie Guillory. And yeah, really, it was a grind. It was up at 5:30 a.m. to set up for 6 a.m., 7 a.m. lifts, and then teams would come into the weight room, and we would have teams throughout the whole day. Usually we would run through 2, 3, 4 teams within a day at varying hours. And then the space you kind of fill in between that is spent, working out, talking with coworkers, going to sports practices, writing training phases for the next, training block that athletes are going to go into, doing research or helping the interns with projects that they're working on. So really, it was a grind. It was awesome. It was so much fun. I learned so much from doing that experience. But yeah, having 6 teams is much different than my experience here at Alabama now. So I'm glad that I got to have that experience, and I'm glad that it was with so many different teams, because really each team that you work with is going to be different just from the demands of the sport. But then you also see differences in teams just based on the culture that they have. The culture of softball was so different than the culture of women's gymnastics, which was so different than the culture of swimming and diving. And my experience just being a gymnast and having that experience at Springfield where I stayed with gymnastics, I kind of siloed myself into, that niche of being a gymnastics strength coach. And funny enough, now I'm at Alabama and I'm back with gymnastics. But I'm thankful that I had that Illinois experience to really kind of broaden my experiences and get to work with athletes that I haven't had the opportunity before. It was so amazing. It gave me a much deeper appreciation of the field of strength and conditioning. So yeah, it was really a fantastic experience.
How did your gymnastic career influence you into the profession that you have chosen as the strength and coordinating coach?
Yeah, so I grew up doing gymnastics. I started when I was 10, and that's kind of late for a gymnast to start. I didn't really get competitive until I was 12. So for me, the one thing that I had going for me was that I was bigger than most kids. So the coaches would just give me more strength than everyone else. And that's really what I like to do. Rather than just practice gymnastics, I just like doing all the workouts that was associated to training. So that's kind of where I found out that like strength and conditioning, or at least something in the realm of physical fitness, was what I wanted to do, because that was what I enjoyed most about gymnastics. Most strength coaches, I feel like, get into strength and conditioning because they were mediocre athletes and the weight room was where they could excel at, because that's you don't really need any talent to be awesome in the weight room. It just takes effort and it just takes commitment. And so that's what I dove into. So really that's where the love of strength and conditioning came from. So I went to the college at Brockport and I was on the college gymnastics team there. I was studying exercise science and kinesiology. I went to Springfield. I was the gymnastics coach there. I was the strength coach for them, getting my master's in strength and conditioning. Went to Illinois. I had gymnastics as my teams there. And at the end of my time at Illinois, Coach Dana Duckworth here at the University of Alabama reached out to me. They had the position open. My position here is only with gymnastics, so they were looking for someone with a gymnastics intensive background. And so I just checked all those boxes. So it's very unique that a strength and conditioning coach has a singular team. Usually you'll see that with football, you'll see that with basketball or baseball. I believe I'm the only person in the country with one team as a strength coach that's women's gymnastics. And so that's very unique, but I kind of credit that to me having a background and growing up with it. And I think I fill that niche perfectly. I'd never wanted to pigeonhole myself just into being a gymnastics strength coach, but the position here at Alabama it opened up. It was perfect for it. So yeah, to answer your question, how has gymnastics led me through my strength and conditioning career? They've never really been separate. They've always been intertwined. So I don't know how many other people can say that with their gymnastics career, but most strength coaches have a niche sport that they like. Usually it's something that they grew up playing, and that's a sport that they want to work with when they become a strength coach, whether it's collegiate or professional or high school. And so I'm just lucky that it worked out with having a niche sport like gymnastics. So I'm thankful for the staff at Alabama. I'm thankful for Dana Duckworth for giving me the opportunity, but it really is so cool because I've never really left the world of gymnastics to go into the world of strength and conditioning. I felt like I've always been attached to gymnastics, even since I was 10. So it's an awesome experience. So
That's pretty cool. What are some of the biggest challenges you have faced so far in the season of COVID whenever it comes to strength and conditioning?
Yeah, COVID has definitely thrown a wrench in every strength and conditioning program across the country. For us, some of the unique challenges that we had to overcome was spacing. The way that we have our gymnastics team set up, and I believe some other teams are doing this as well, is we have girls that are living together. And so if they live together, that's a pod. And so those girls can train together. Usually that's 2, 3, 4 athletes. Those girls can train. They're around each other all the time. So if we're training, they can have masks off around each other because they live together. But if we have those 3 girls that are in one section of the gym, they can't come into contact without their masks. within 6 feet of another pod of girls. Or if they are together, they need to all be wearing masks. So social distancing protocols and masking protocols, really anything safety related to COVID has taken over our protocols here. So, if I could usually have one rack and, girls are training in that one rack, and usually I could have 6 girls on that one station. Well, now I got to break it up. I got to have 3 girls on that station, and I can't have the other 3 girls immediately next to them. They might need to be a rack over. And so spacing becomes an issue. That led us this year into training into a satellite weight room. We have multiple weight rooms at Alabama. Our main weight room is Malmore, and we were training out of the satellite Coleman facility. Just because it's smaller, we knew that our athletes wouldn't be coming into contact with other teams. And that was something that we really tried to focus on to make sure that, if people were to get contact traced, we're protecting ourselves because we're kind of staying in our Bama bubble. And so we had to train in small groups, and we had to train out of a satellite weight room. It wasn't ideal, but something that could be a silver lining to that is we were able to get more hands-on with the athletes, and training in smaller groups makes the training a little more personal. And so that was a benefit. We really tried to coach the girls up as much as possible. And small groups, you can do a little bit more individualizations with each people, rather than having one large group where you're trying to, manage the flow of, 16 to 18 athletes. If you're working with a crew of, 6 to 8, it's way more manageable, and, you can coach the girls way harder to get more out of them. So that was a silver lining there. Another thing that we did this year, which was actually, I think, kind of funny, is during our winter break, all of the girls went home. And so they had to come back. And as we were getting ready for season, we had to keep them in their quarantine pods. So for the week of training, this was 2 weeks before our season started. We had to train in 5 different practice groups. So girls were coming into the gymnastics gym. They would train for an hour and a half. And then they would come to the weight room where I was, and they would train for an hour and a half. And that might have only been 2 or 3 girls because we had so many different so many different pods broken up. I went to New York for my break, and so I was also quarantined. So in my office where the weight room was, I had a Bluetooth speaker in the weight room. I was in my office, and we set up a wireless speaker. So I would go into the weight room. I would lay out the cards, which is the paper the workout is printed on. I would put the workouts in the gym. I would leave. I'd go to my office. I'd lock the door. I would have no contact with the girls, and I would talk to them through my phone through this Bluetooth speaker. And so it was really weird because we had to do a whole week of training like that, where we were in totally separate rooms, and I'm looking out through this window, coaching them. So, we were playing music, we were having fun. I did some DJ hype noises, like some DJ, sound clips to like make it fun. But that was really a weird week of training. So really, the social distancing has played a big impact in not only how we lift, but how we practice as well. So it's been a lot to overcome, but, I think our team and the rest of the coaching staff have done an awesome job with, working through it and, meeting the challenge head on.
Can you talk about, of course, do athletes, whenever they work out and stuff, do they have to wear masks? Like if they're like on, like, let's say a squat rack, do they have to wear a mask if, let's say, their pod is like next to each other? Or
Yeah, great question. So we keep our pods socially distanced. So if we have a group of 3 girls, we'll make sure that any station that's around them is more than 6 feet apart. And so if they're training, nope. If they're doing an exercise, they can have their mask down. If they are rotating between stations, or they're moving into an area where they might come into contact with another girl, then yes, all parties will keep their masks up. As coaches as well, we don't ever take our masks off. The rest of the gymnastics staff and the rest of the strength and conditioning staff, because we're moving around between pods, we have been masked up this whole year. So we try to keep it where everything is spaced out, because lifting with the mask, especially if you're doing some type of cardiovascular exercise, or you're doing something exceptionally strenuous, it's difficult to have the mask on. We've been lucky enough because we've been in the satellite weight room where it's only us. We know that other teams aren't going to be coming in and interfering with that bubble. So it has been an extra kind of layer of protection for us as far as the contact tracing goes. But we are very strict with our masking policies, even in practice. Girls are swinging around the bars, they're doing flips. For them to wear a mask would be unsafe just because it's such an intensive sport. But we do a good job of making sure that everyone is on a strict rotation with where they need to be. And if they got to be masked up, we always have them handy. So
What are some of your favorite memories and moments as a strength and coordinating coach at Alabama?
yeah, so this is my second year at and something that really stands out is the senior meet that we had last year. It's kind of funny because looking back, we didn't know that was going to be our last meet of the year. It was our last home meet, so I'm lucky that we got that far. But then COVID came in and shut everything down. But my first year there, we had a senior meet, and probably one of the coolest moments was we have a giant script A because our logo is the script A. We have this giant script A in the middle of the competition floor. And so after the meet, everyone's taking photos with the seniors. And so I've got some great photos. It's me and the seniors, our three seniors, and we're flexing on that script A, and it was so much fun. I love getting pictures with the seniors. Our senior class last year, which was my first graduating class here at Alabama, they were fantastic athletes. So just to see them, shine at that senior meet, it was such an awesome experience, and I'm glad that I was really close with all of them. So that was really fun. They gave me a picture frame with Big Al, the elephant, our logo, and he's ripped. He's got a 6-pack. He's got huge pecs, and he's got a barbell on his shoulders, and it has their names on it. So that's hanging up in the office now. So that's really cool. That was a great experience. So anything with our seniors so far, I'm really looking forward to. Other than that, I would say lifts where we get really into it, I think are always fun. The girls work hard. I try to push them as much as possible. But there'll be some days where we back off and we'll do a game, or we'll do some type of challenge where, something that we did last year was I took these items, and this is not my idea. I got this from Coach Guillory at Illinois, but I got these items, and it's a hide and seek game. So we split the team into two, and I hid these items around the gymnastics gym, and it was like a scavenger hunt. But if you're not doing the scavenger hunt, you're with your team, and maybe you're doing jumping jacks, or you're doing a core exercise, or you're holding a plank. And so they had to go around and find these things, and it was just an hour of fun, and it was a much needed break, I think, for them from the traditional grind of just doing the sets and reps of a training workout. So anytime that we can break out and do something a little more engaging, a little more challenging, a little more team building, I always have fun with that. I think the girls have a great time doing that. So not that one stands out in particular, but I always try to throw in some challenges or something engaging at least when we can. It's been tougher to do this year because of COVID, and I've been a little more by the books with our training. So we've done less of that this year, but I look forward to getting to do more of those, because really that's when we all have fun, and that's really like the bonding experience, when the bonding experience happens between a strength coach and the athletes, when you can kind of break out of your shell of just coaching athletes and doing deadlifts and squats, things that they would normally be doing. So I always look forward to those.
That's amazing. Can you talk about, of course, the day-to-day as a strength and coordinating coach and what the roles and responsibilities are?
Yeah, I would say my experience at Alabama here is almost polar opposite compared to what Illinois was. I would say Illinois was more of a standard strength and conditioning experience where most strength coaches are going to have multiple teams, and most strength coaches are going to be in the weight room, and the athletes will come to them. The less teams you have, the more involved you can be with each program. So for example, when I was at Illinois and I had, 6 teams, I lived in the weight room, teams would come to me, and, I'd make my best effort to go out to practice, but based on schedules, it didn't always happen. Here at Alabama, I have one team. And so I'm involved in anything from, being at practice, working with injured girls, helping coach when she needs it with practice planning, and giving my 2 cents on that, going to, gymnastics meetings, anything associated to the program just with gymnastics, I'll always have a hand in. But mostly the day-to-day of a strength coach is you wake up early morning, you've got a morning lift. We can start our teams at 6 a.m. And so usually from 6 to 8, 6 to 9, whenever your athletes have class, usually that 6 to, 8, 8:30, 9 morning period is going to be with your teams. You might be able to get, 1, 2, or 3 teams in at that time. You'll get a little chunk of break in the middle. Usually that's when athletes are going to be at their classes. So usually that's when you'll grab lunch, work out, you'll lift. You can write your programs for the upcoming phases. So usually that's like continuing education or investment time. And then towards the afternoon, towards the evening, then you'll have another group. Those teams will usually be coming after practice. And so you might have another group which runs from 4 to 6. So depending on what day it is, depending on how many teams you have, depending on those team schedules, you could have a day which runs from 5:30 because that's when you get into setup, all the way to 6:30 because you might have a team that ends at 6 and you're breaking down till then. So the hours can be long depending on how many teams you have. For me right now, with my one team, we have practice which starts at 1 and goes till around 4. So I'm usually in the gym at 12:30. Setting up workouts for whatever girls that I'll be working with for the day. And then after 4, usually I'll hang out, chat with coaches, and then leave after that. In the mornings, I'll work with other teams if I have the time. Usually cheer, work with Michelle Diltz over with the cheer team. So I'll give a hand there if they need it. I also work with the internship development program. So usually my mornings are spent writing up emails, developing the internship curriculum, coaching the internship classes. I'm also doing my PhD here part-time. So I'll also spend that time going to class, studying. Really, the way I see it is if you're not involved with either practice or the lift, you're doing something that's keeping you busy that revolves around improving your program. So I'm lucky that I get to do that because I have one team. So I try to spend as much time doing that as possible.
That's amazing. What is something that you learn now that you didn't know beforehand starting as a strength and coordinating coach?
Yeah. So, going through the exercise science program as an undergrad, and then even, less so at Springfield College, but even in grad school, a lot of the things that you learn are in the classroom. And so you might learn, how to coach a certain exercise, or you might learn the benefits of exercises and the physiology and the kinesiology of it, how muscles move, what their interaction is, all that stuff. All that stuff is great and it's important to know. And where I am now, I'm going back to learn more of it so I can improve my programming. But I feel like when you're coming up in strength and conditioning, you feel like that is the end all be all. Understanding the sets and reps, trying to put down on paper the perfect workout. And until you get into the field of strength and conditioning and you're working with athletes and you're in the trenches, you don't realize how, I don't want to say not important that is, but I don't want people to overemphasize that. So really something that I know now that I didn't know then is it's about communication. It's about building relationships with your athletes. It's about being able to work on the fly. It's about being able to realize that you're never going to write the perfect program. And even if you do, your athletes might come into the weight room and say, hey, I'm toast today. Like, give me a break. And you got to take your perfect program and you got to, cut some sets. You got to cut some reps. You got to adjust it. Gymnastics is a very physical sport. It's very intensive. There's high impact to it. And, I might have this happened yesterday. I had this workout written up. It was perfect. We were going to have the girls lifting, we were going to get some velocity numbers on them. And I changed up a couple exercises. So I was like, all right, this is a great new phase for them. And practice was really hard. And practice was longer than it normally would run. And so instead of getting my whole team in at once and being able to go over everything and review it and then get everyone to the racks, get them lifting, get them in, get them out, girls rolled in and, they came in maybe like 3 or 4 at a time. So, I was like, all right, we got to roll with the punches. This is what we got to do. And we worked on the fly, and that happens all the time. You're working with athletes, you're working with humans. You need to be able to adjust. You need to be able to have a relationship with that person so that you know what they need. And maybe what you put down on paper isn't what they need for that day. Okay. How do you rack your brain to figure out the solution for that person? What's the relationship with them like, so that you can get through to them what they need to do for the day, and how well can they communicate to you what their needs are so you can meet in the middle. That's stuff that they don't teach you when you're in a classroom, studying for a certification test. That's stuff that you learn just by being a coach and just by working with athletes and being involved in a program. So I would say really the biggest thing I've learned is just not to emphasize the program so much, but to emphasize how you utilize that program, how you work with your athletes, and how you get the most out of them. Because, you can have the best program on paper, and if your athletes are only given 20% into it, well, you're not giving them everything that they could get out of it. So I would say definitely build those relationships with your athletes, improve your communication, improve your coaching style. That is all far more important than just understanding, the origin and insertion of a muscle. Not like that's not important. I love learning that stuff, but we got to be coaches. We got to be coaches, and we got to really work with people.
That's wonderful. What advice would you give upcoming future strength and coordinating coaches looking to get into the industry?
Yeah. I would say be prepared. It's a field that currently right now is oversaturated. There are a lot of people gunning for very few positions. And because of that, pay is very low. So I would say pay is very low and education is very high. I have my master's degree, and that's kind of the entry level into becoming a collegiate strength and conditioning coach, along with having your certifications. Before I got my part-time position, I also did 2 internships, one at Harvard and one at Stony Brook. So I would say if it's something that you really want to do, it's a fantastic career. You get to wake up, you get to do something that you're passionate about every day. It really is a fun career. And there's so much to learn. There's so many different avenues that you can take your education with the type of coach that you want to be. So really, if you're really invested in it, just be prepared to put in the work. Be prepared for the challenges that come along with getting into a full-time position. You'll have to work for minimal pay. You'll have to get part-time jobs. I was coaching a gymnastics team, a JO gymnastics team, when I was working at Illinois at the same time. Thankfully, I had my graduate assistantship that was covering my tuition at Springfield. But if you're passionate about it and you know that it's something that you absolutely want to do, then you got to be willing to go full force and put the pedal to the metal when it comes to reaching out, growing your network, and just reaching for as many opportunities as you can to get into the field. But once you make it, it's awesome to be here. I would just say be ready for the grind and do everything you can to grow your network and take as many opportunities as you can to reach out to people. And just, I'd say that.
That's wonderful advice. Where can my listeners find you at on social media, along with the strength and coordinating program at?
Yeah, I'm not too big on social media, admittedly. You can look me up. It's just Dave_Albaranes. I've talked to my friends. I got to post more. I enjoy reading and consuming strength and conditioning content. I don't often put it out, so that's something that I'm working to improve on. Instagram, feel free to look me up. On Facebook, I don't do Facebook too much too, but it's just Dave Albaranes. I think those are the 2 big social medias that I use. Find me on LinkedIn. Yeah, feel free to reach out if anyone's listening to this. If anyone's interested in strength and conditioning, just consider myself a resource for you, and feel free to reach out. I'm always willing to chat and talk shop.
Thank you again, Dave Albaranes, for your interview, and best of luck at Alabama in the strength and coordinating program.
Thank you, Brandon. Thanks for having me. Much appreciated.
You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Facebook at Brandon Sports Talk, Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Dave, for your interview, and best of luck.
Thanks, Brandon.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.